Your contracts were perfectly fine when you had 5 clients, but it's destroying your business now that you have 50. That's what happens when a service business starts to scale without upgrading its systems. So every rep is sending their own version of the contract. Nobody knows if the pricing is current. Terms are getting edited by people who shouldn't be touching them. And deals are going cold because a PDF sat unread in a spam folder for a week. And leadership has zero visibility into any of it. So you didn't build a bad business, you just never rebuilt the system that was supposed to hold it together. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what a winning service contract looks like, section by section, including the parts that most people leave out that directly impact whether the deal closes or dies. And at the end, I'll show you the exact system that companies with dozens of locations are using to send consistent, professional deal closing contracts in minutes, not days. So you're gonna wanna stick around for that. So first, I want you to meet Marcus. Marcus runs a commercial landscaping company. When he started out, it was just him and 2 other guys, maybe 5 clients on the books. He had one Word document that he tweaked every time a new client came in, and honestly, it worked fine. Fast forward a few years. Marcus now has 12 employees, 3 crews, they're running jobs simultaneously, and he's closing 8 to 10 new contracts every single month. Business is booming, except he's still using that same Word document. He duplicates it, does a find and replace on the client's name, and emails over a PDF, just like he always has. Last month, one of his reps sent a contract to a brand new prospect, and the previous client's name was still sitting right there in the header. The prospect never replied. The week before that, another rep sent out a contract with pricing from 6 months ago before Marcus raised his rates. They honored it. He ate the difference on a 12-month deal. Just 2 weeks ago, a contract got buried in a spam folder. Marcus followed up 4 days later. The prospect had already signed with a competitor. And here's another thing Marcus didn't realize at the time. His competitors didn't win because they were cheaper or faster. They won because their contract looked like it came from a real company. It had photos of their past work, clean branding, and a professional layout that made the client feel like they were making a safe choice. Marcus's Word doc with the generic formatting, it made him look small, even though his work is incredible. In service industries like landscaping, roofing, or cleaning, professionalism, it isn't always a given. So when your contract looks as good as the work you do, it separates you from everyone else who's still sending price sheets in Times New Roman. Now, here's the thing. Marcus isn't bad at his business. He's actually really good at it, but he's currently running a brand new Ferrari on a 1999 Toyota Corolla engine. The process that worked when he had a handful of clients is now the thing quietly killing deals at scale. If any part of that story sounds familiar, keep watching, because what I'm about to show you fixes every single one of those problems. All right. Now let's start the foundation. Every service contract, no matter what industry you're in, needs these core sections to be legally solid and professionally presentable. The first one is your client and business information. This sounds obvious, but you would be shocked at how many contracts go without a clear identification of who the 2 parties actually are. Full legal name of the client, full legal name of your business, and contact details for both. No ambiguity. Next is your scope of work. This is the section that protects you more than any other. It needs to be specific, not, oh, we will provide landscaping services. Instead, it's we will mow, edge, and blow all lawn areas weekly between April and October, and prune all shrubs quarterly. So the more detail you put in here, the less room there is for a client to come back later and say, look, you didn't deliver what they expected. After that comes your deliverables and timeline. What are you delivering? When are you delivering it? And who is responsible for what on both sides? If the client needs to provide access to a property or sign off on materials before you can start, that goes in here. Then you have your payment terms, the exact amount, the payment schedule, what triggers each payment, accepted payment methods, and what happens if a payment is late. Do not leave this vague. Vague payment terms create awkward conversations and delayed cash flow. Next is the duration of the contract. When does it start? When does it end? What are the renewal terms? Does it auto-renew? And if so, what's the notice period to cancel? These details matter a lot when you're managing dozens of ongoing client relationships at the same time. And finally, your signatures. Both parties need to sign, and those signatures need to be legally binding. Don't worry, we're going to talk about the best way to handle that in just a minute. Those 6 sections we just covered are your non-negotiables, but they're also just the baseline. And if your contract stops there, you'll just look like everyone else. This is where it gets interesting because most service providers treat a contract like a legal formality, something you send after the deal is done. But the truth is your contract is often the last thing a prospect sees before they decide to sign or walk away. And how it looks, how it reads, and what it includes can absolutely be the difference between a yes and a ghost. So let's talk about the sections that most people skip, but that winning service businesses are using to close more deals. The first one is branding and visual presentation. Although it's not a specific section in your proposal, but the overall feel and look of it. It's also one of the reasons Marcus lost some of his deals. In service industries like landscaping, roofing, or commercial cleaning, your contract isn't just paperwork. It's proof that you run a professional operation. You want high quality photos of your past projects, a clean layout with your logo and brand colors, and easy to scan sections instead of walls of texts. When a prospect is deciding between you and two competitors, the one with the polished, branded contract wins because it signals you're a real business, not just a guy with a truck. So don't make Marcus's mistake. The second one is an executive summary or cover letter at the top of the document. Before you get into the scope and the pricing and the terms, you want a short, personalized section that tells the story of why you and why now. It references the specific conversation you had with this client. It reminds them of the problem they told you they were trying to solve. And it positions your company as the right partner to solve it. This section does something the legal language in the rest of the contract cannot do. It keeps the buyer emotionally connected to the reason they reached out in the first place. The third one most people sign is an interactive pricing table. Instead of presenting one flat price and forcing the client into a binary yes or no decision, give them options. A good, better, best model completely changes the psychology of how a buyer looks at your pricing. When someone sees a premium option at the top, the middle tier suddenly feels like the smart, reasonable choice. And when you let prospects adjust quantities or select add-ons themselves, something powerful happens. They stop thinking about whether they can afford you and they start thinking about what they actually want. Our data at Proposify shows that proposals and contracts with interactive pricing tables are more likely to close by 41%. And deals where buyers can customize their own options often comes in at higher values than the original quote. The fourth thing most service providers skip is an embedded video walkthrough. So think about what actually happens when you send a contract. The buyer opens it alone at their desk without you there to answer questions or build rapport. So if something confuses them, they don't email you to ask. They close the document and they move on. So a short embedded video changes that entirely. You record yourself walking through the proposal, addressing their specific concerns, putting a face to the name. Now you're presenting the contract. You're not just sending it into the void. Also, if they forward the email to anyone on their team that you haven't had a chance to speak to or present to directly, the video carries your value into that room. And only 23% of service businesses include video in their sales documents, which means doing this alone immediately sets you apart from most of your competition. The fifth one is locked terms and conditions. Not just the presence of terms, but terms that cannot be edited by anyone except the person who was supposed to edit them. This is especially important when you have a team. And without locked terms, reps can accidentally or intentionally change language that could expose your business to legal risk. So you set the standard language once, it gets locked down, and every contract that goes out is compliant. No exceptions. The sixth thing is the one that alone can dramatically speed up your close rate. It's a built-in e-signature field. Contracts with e-signatures close 40% faster than contracts that require printing, signing, scanning, and emailing back. And that makes complete sense. Every extra step you add to the signing process is another moment where the buyer can get distracted, lose momentum, or talk themselves out of it. An e-signature means they can sign on their phone at 10 p.m., 30 seconds after they finish reading. That's the close rate advantage holding in your contract process. Now, I want to show you how to actually build this in a way that works whether you're a solo operator or you're managing a team of 30 reps across multiple locations. Because the problem Marcus had was not that he had bad contracts. His original contract was fine. The problem was that he had no system for making sure those contracts were consistent, current, and professional every single time they went out. What you need is a template-based process built on a platform that was designed specifically for this. With Proposify, you build your contract template once. You lock in your branding, your pre-approved scope language, your terms and conditions, and your pricing structure. Then, when a rep needs to send a contract, they open the template, plug in the client's name, customize the scope of work for that specific job, and send it. The whole thing takes minutes, not hours. And because the core of the document is locked down, nobody can accidentally send the wrong pricing, use outdated terms, or go off brand. You also get a content library where you can store pre-written sections for different types of jobs, different service packages, or different client industries. So instead of starting from scratch or copy pasting from an old file, your rep just pulls the right section from the library and drops it in. It's plug and play. And once the contract is sent, you don't just cross your fingers and you wait. Proposify shows you exactly when the client opened it, which sections they spent the most time on, and whether they forwarded it to someone else internally. That changes your follow-up completely. Instead of sending a generic, just checking in email, 3 days later, you can reach out and say, I noticed you spent a lot of time on the pricing section. Did you have any questions there? That is the kind of follow-up that gets responses. So I want to close with 2 real companies that were dealing with exactly what Marcus was dealing with and what happened when they fixed their contract process. The first is 360 Clean, a commercial cleaning franchise with over 70 locations across the United States. Before Proposify, every single franchise owner was doing their own thing. Some were sending Word documents. Some were dropping a quote in the body of an email. Some were actually printing contracts and handing them over in person. There was no consistency, no brand control, and no pricing oversight. Regional developers were racing to the bottom on pricing just to win bids, which meant franchise owners were cutting corners to stay profitable, and the quality of service was suffering because of it. Lisa Morgan, their director of marketing, knew something had to change. She built out a full library of pre-approved templates and content inside Proposify, locked down the branding and pricing, and rolled it out to all 70 plus franchise owners. And the result, within the first few uses, franchise owners could send a professional on-brand contract in minutes. Lisa described it this way. Once the franchise owners send their first 2 or 3 proposals, they can literally do it with their eyes closed. Corporate now has full visibility into every deal, brand, and pricing are completely consistent across all locations, and the entire customer experience improved overnight. The second company is ADT Cybersecurity. They were facing thousands of incoming bid requests every year through a federal grant program for K through 12 schools, and they were managing all of it through Word documents with pricing tables copied and pasted in from Excel. Pricing errors were going out the door regularly, deals being missed because documents took too long to build, and sales leadership had no real visibility into how many proposals were out or what stage they were at. Eric Berger, their senior manager of business development, said it perfectly. No matter how much you train people on best practices, you can't really enforce them when they're using Word docs. And after implementing Proposify, ADT Cybersecurity got pre-approved templates in place, locked down their pricing library, and gave reps the ability to respond to bids fast and consistently. The team went from chaos to a system where reps are now excited to track their own pipeline, and leadership has real-time visibility into every deal in progress. 2 very different businesses, 2 very different industries, same root problem and the same fix. So here's the bottom line. Your contract is not just a legal document. It is the last thing your prospect sees before they decide whether to trust you with their money. If it's slow, inconsistent, confusing, or unprofessional, it's costing you deals that you should be winning. But when your contract process is built on solid template with the right sections, locked down terms, interactive pricing, and digital signatures, it stops being a bottleneck and it starts being a closing tool. That is the shift that changes everything. So if you want to build this kind of contract process for your service business, you can start a free 14-day trial of Proposify with the first link in the description below. No credit card required. And if this video gave you something valuable, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss what we put out. The suggested video on your screen right now goes even deeper into how to build a proposal and contract process that consistently wins more business.